Hello everybody, I'm Randy Ray, the Literate Texan, coming to you pre-recorded from Driftwood Ranch. And in this video, I am answering the questions that Steve Donahue so thoughtfully posed in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine tag as part of his participation in co-hosting Book Trek this summer. He has been creating videos that are tags based on questions inspired by the main characters in the various Star Trek shows. And Deep Space Nine, of course, was the one set on a space station instead of a starship. So it's more of a, Casablanca type setting. You know, there's all kinds of intrigue and stuff going on there. Before I get too deeply into it, I do want to say a little bit about Book Trek. It's a really simple 3-month-long event that was started by Revenant Reads, and it's blown up into something big. If you like Star Trek, you'd probably enjoy participating in it, because basically all you have to do to participate is read a Star Trek book, any Star Trek book, anytime during that 3-month period. It's called The Summer of Trek. So, and he has multiple co-hosts, and I'll post all that stuff down in the description below. So, but I want to get on with the questions. Number one, Captain SISKO, the Emissary. Are you religious? Does organized religion play any role in your life? Okay, so one of the plot points over the 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine is that, you know, the space station is set outside of a wormhole. And on the planet Bajor, which is also just outside of the wormhole, they worship the prophets, these gods that they think are in the wormhole. And it turns out there's something in that wormhole that describe themselves as prophets, because in the very first episode, they take Captain SISKO in and make him the emissary, which I guess is kind of like a Moses type role. And it's an intermediary between the gods and the people of Bajor. So, you know, it's not a plot point that's ever brought to any kind of useful fruition in the show, but it is kind of interesting and different, especially considering the very humanistic approach to fiction that Star Trek generally takes. So, excuse me, I have to take a sip of water. It's meds that I'm on. These meds I'm on give me wicked dry mouth. So the question is, are you religious? And I would say, no, I'm not religious. Organized religion does not play any role in my life. I'm not an atheist, however. I'm what they call a pantheist, which means that I believe that God is present throughout. There's no separate creator and creation, but God is present throughout everything and everybody. Which, you know, depending on how you look at it, implies the belief of a supernatural, but by definition, if everything's God, that's what the word pan means, is everything or all, then there is nothing that's supernatural. It's all part of the natural world. But that doesn't mean it can't be shot through and through with a sense of the holy or the divine either. You know, it's all a matter of perspective. So, but, you know, and I know there's different branches of pantheism. I guess Wiccans are also pantheists of a sort. But I'm just not into organized religion at all. You know, my parents didn't force that sort of thing on me. My dad was a Baptist, but he didn't go to church when I was growing up. My mom was what they call a lapsed Catholic. And they did send me to a church called the Church of the Nazarene when I was a little boy. I don't remember much about it except making the little handprints in the concrete in the little bowls and bringing them home. And I remember they fed us snacks, those little it was the first time I'd ever had those little peanut butter cheese crackers. But I was really young. I don't remember much about it at all. But, you know, I've read the Bible. I'm knowledgeable. You know, I'm from a Judeo-Christian country and a Judeo-Christian culture. So I'm not lost when it comes to talking about God. My dad, in his later years after my mother died, did find a lot of solace in the church and attended a Methodist church for 20 or 30 years. And I believe he was a deacon there. He never bragged about it or talked about it very much. But, and I would occasionally go to church with him, you know, just for fun or to be supportive, or, you know, Friday nights, you know, around these parts, a lot of churches will have a catfish fry, and that was really my favorite thing to go to. Number 2, Major Kira, the former resistance fighter. So, you know, another of the plot points on the show is that Bajor has been under the thumb of the Kardashian empire. And, Kardashians are these wicked looking aliens with ridges on their head, which is something really unusual to Star Trek aliens, right? They all just have ridges on their forehead. But anyway, so the Bajorans, had an underground resistance that was trying to fight off the yoke of the Kardashian rule, which was really cruel, and she was one of the resistance fighters there. The question is, have you ever been in any kind of combat, armed or unarmed? Well, there were a couple of schoolyard fights. Generally, I've been pretty good about talking my way out of trouble in bars. I'm 6'3", and I'm a really big guy. There's a certain type of guy who has Napoleon syndrome that you'll run into bars on a regular basis, and they'll sometimes try to pick a fight with me. Usually I can smooth that over by telling a couple jokes, buying a couple rounds of drinks, that sort of thing. But I'm also generally well liked, and so if somebody starts picking on me too much, my friends will usually, get in the middle of it and stuff. So no, and I don't go to bars anymore anyway, and there aren't too many fights breaking out in my local AA meeting, although it wouldn't surprise me either. Oh, that was number 2. Number 3, sorry, I didn't mean to sigh out loud like that. I'm a little tired. I stayed up till 2 a.m. reading a book last night. Number 3, Chief Engineer O'Brien, Keiko's husband. Keiko's husband? I don't remember how you pronounced his wife's name. Have you ever had, or do you currently have, a nagging wife? I was married for 15 years. I would not describe my wife as a nag, or my ex-wife as a nag, because God only knows how she would punish me if I did. If so, how often do you contemplate killing her and making it look like an accident? I have an amiable relationship with my ex-wife. So, yeah, no, murder's not in my future with anybody, least of all her. She gave me 15 years. And, the interesting thing about her and my drinking career is I was drinking heavily when I met her, and I was drinking heavily when she left 15 years later. She was never married to sober Randy at all. She doesn't know this side of me very well at all. So, number 4, Constable Odo, the shapeshifter. He was the exotic. If you pay attention to the way the Star Trek crews are set up, normally you've got several, kind of regular guys, and a couple of women thrown in for good measure. And then you have an exotic, quote unquote. And in the original series, of course, the exotic was Spock. He was the alien with the pointed ears. In Deep Space Nine, and then the Next Generation, the exotic, of course, was Worf, the Klingon. But also, to a lesser extent, Deanna Troi was an exotic because she was half Beta Z and could detect emotions. And in Deep Space Nine, your exotic is one of your exotics is Constable Odo, the shapeshifter. He's certainly the most exotic of the exotics because, he can change shapes. The question with this one is, do you shapeshift in your daily life? Are you very different in different settings? So much so that we on BookTube would be surprised. I don't think you guys would be surprised. My personality pretty much stays the same. I had some friends from my drinking days over to visit one time. And I also had some of my friends from Alcoholics Anonymous over to visit one time. And one of my friends from AA asked one of my old drinking buddies, I said, man, what was Randy like when he was drinking? And my friend Cliff laughed and he said, you know what? He was about like he is now, only more so. But I have been told that when I'm in some kind of business meeting, I can turn on the professionalism and the charm and the schmoozing and stuff. But I was told that by a childhood friend who only knows Goofy Randy, who likes to play Dungeons and Dragons on Sundays. But so yeah, I think everybody shapeshifts a little bit in their daily life, but I don't think anybody would be surprised in how I behave in various situations. Number 5, Science Officer Jadzia Dax, who is centuries old. Okay, so this is our other exotic. And basically there's I don't remember the name of the alien race, but they're symbiotes, and they live inside of a host body. Trillions or trills or something like that. So Jadzia Dax is 2 people at once, and one of those people is an old man that SISKO knows from many, many years ago, but the old man died, and so now Jadzia Dax is the new host for that same symbiote. But here's the question, what's your relationship with science? Have you studied it? How much of it plays a part in your life? Okay, so when I was growing up, before I decided I wanted to be an English teacher, I wanted to be an astronomer, and that was a lifelong dream of mine. And then eventually I had a teacher that was really influential in my life, and I decided I wanted to be a science teacher. And I moved on from that. But science was very important to me, especially as a young person. I was fascinated by astronomy in particular, but also by chemistry. And when I went to college, you know, you have to take a certain amount of science just to get in your basics. I took physics, which was really, really hard for me. It was the first D I'd ever made in my life, but I aced chemistry. I always had a real knack for chemistry. I took geography, and I did okay in that too, you know. And then I don't know, but I always made A's in science classes. I always did real well in science. Science is fascinating to me. So, number 6, Jake Sisko, the commander's son. Were you annoying as a kid? How annoying on a scale of 8 to 10 are your own kids? I was a very quiet and serious child, according to some of my older relatives who knew me then. But I also know that sometimes I would become quite a cut up and a tease. And I know my grandmother told me one time, actually she told me this several times, which is why I remember it. Why you always gotta be aggravating, son? So I was doing something to irritate people. I don't necessarily remember what, but I think it had a lot to do with teasing. You know, my kids are wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. They don't annoy me much at all. Of course, they're 21 now. And we're like anybody. I probably annoy them more than they annoy me. Let's just put it that way. Number 7, Lieutenant Worf, Chief of Security. Okay, so there's a third exotic, one that we're already familiar with from Star Trek The Next Generation. And the question is, was there ever a time when you were embarrassed by your parents? What role do they play in your life? Both my parents are dead, so they don't really play a role in my life anymore, except as people that I remember. And I do try to remember some of the life lessons that they taught me. You know, my dad was a very simple and direct man. He was a man of few words. One time I was having a problem with my wife, okay? I went to my dad to talk to him about it because he'd somehow managed to stay married to my mother for 41 years. So I knew he had some experience in this area. And, you know, I was telling him all about it and stuff. And when I finished, he looked at me and he took a deep breath and he said, "Women can be weird sometimes, son." I waited for him to elaborate. He didn't. That was all he had to say on the subject. He was a man of few words. My mom, on the other hand, introduced me to my love of reading, also to my love of board games, especially word games like Scrabble and Boggle and that sort of thing. You know, we had a contentious relationship. I wish it had been different. I wish I'd been able to handle it differently, but I handled the situation the way that I did. So, yeah, I was embarrassed by my parents. My mom was kind of a shut-in and wasn't very well adjusted socially. And so that was a little embarrassing to me. You know, our household was run pretty differently from a lot of households in a lot of different ways. But you know, it's all past now, right? And I've worked through a lot of those issues in therapy. If you haven't, then, you know, it's probably a good idea to do. Because I think everybody's childhood has some embarrassing issues that probably follow us around in life. I don't know. Then again, maybe you don't. Number 8, Quark, your not so friendly bartender. Again, another exotic. Are you consumed with greed? Do you manage money well? What kind of role does it play in your life? First of all, I'm not consumed with greed, but I do like money, and I like having money. I like having nice things, and I like being able to eat at nice restaurants. I like flying first class. And I have made a lot of money in my life, which brings me to the second question. Do you manage money well? Oh, no, I'm a terrible manager of money. I play great offense, but lousy defense. You know, I can make money. You need me to go make some money, I'll go make you some money. You give me a week or two, I can afford almost anything. But in terms of keeping it, man, no. No, I spend money pretty quick. What kind of role does money play in your life? You know, I'm just trying to, enjoy my life and enjoy some of these experiences. Number 9, Gul Dukat, the honorable enemy. Have you ever worn padded leather? No. Had a complete mental breakdown? No, not a complete mental breakdown, but I've had several partial mental breakdowns and thrown around bolts of mystical energy. Well, I don't know if my wife would have called my farts bolts of mystical energy. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't even know what bolts of mystical energy means in the context of my life. Maybe I've given a little bit of good advice to some younger men that I've mentored here and there, but I don't know that I would describe them as bolts of mystical energy. One of the young men that I mentored asked me for. He was surprised that I have such an active social life with women because I'm a big fat guy and I'm older and whatever, and I always have, I never have a problem finding a date. And he asked me what my secret was. I told him, I said, it's not hard, man. Tell the smart ones they're pretty and tell the pretty ones that they're smart. And he asked me, he said, well, what if you meet one who's smart and pretty? I said, tell her she's funny. But that's just made up homily stuff, man. There's no real wisdom there. That's not a bolt of mystical energy. That's the best I got for that poor guy, But anyway, that's the Deep Space Nine tag. I'm going to wrap it up there. It was a fun one. I want to thank Steve for creating it. I really enjoyed watching J. Scott Phillips' answers to these questions in his channel too. So I'm going to mention him down below so you can go subscribe to J. Scott Phillips. And then in terms of tagging other people, I'm not going to tag anybody else. Everybody on BookTube is tagged. Let's do it that way. How do you like that? Until my next video, stay hydrated, stay sexy.